What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to the Fringe. Well. It looks like old Mark Carney's thrown in the towel. He took his ball and he went home. Has he quit altogether? No. But he's showing that he's almost giving up. He's rolling over here. Pierre Poilievre is just too much for Mark Carney to handle. We're going to get into that. Before we get into that, ladies and gentlemen, as this campaign isn't 100% over yet, I'm going to remind everybody, if you haven't yet subscribed to the channel, please hit that button. I know everybody gets sick of me throwing it in at the beginning of a video, but it's important for those new coming in to understand that the Liberals are paying, they're making sure that all content is suppressed, that nothing gets out. They only want your eyes on mainstream media. Some videos, depending on the subject on this channel as well as others, are getting completely censored and hammered. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, not just on this channel, but every Canadian content political creator that you follow here on the platform. Make sure you follow them. Turn on your bell for all notifications on every channel so that you can be notified every time we drop new content for you to take in, so that you're getting the news that's important to you before this election takes place. That being said, make sure to also leave a like and a comment down below. It helps push us past YouTube's censorship algorithm. With that said, let's get into what's happening with Mark Carney, because it's hilarious. If you didn't know, he was in Hamilton. He was in Hamilton last night, and things didn't go well for Mark Carney. In fact, people were talking about, oh my God, I had people tweeting me, Fringe, Mark Carney's got lineups of people outside. There's all these people outside. Well, we're going to talk about that. Anti-Taxer, another great Twitter account, by the way. Good to follow at Maple Blooded. Something definitely went wrong for Mark Carney in Hamilton. There have been no posts about the long line to get into the rally from his account or the Liberals' account. Only Rebel News, Joe Warmington, and Karima Rules reported on it. Why? Well, it looks like the long line of people was full of folks who didn't want Mark Carney there. They didn't. They were there to protest. They didn't want Mark Carney in Hamilton. He was relentlessly heckled for 2 full minutes while trying to deliver his speech, which was god-awful, by the way. What is going on with this guy? Didn't his campaign tell the media he was pausing his campaign to deal with tariffs again? Then he appears in Hamilton? They're trying to tell us this disaster is going to win a bigger majority than Trudeau won. This is why I keep saying you can't believe the mainstream media, you can't believe the polls, you can't believe any of this. We talked about the tariffs. We talked about how it's been paused. We've talked about how this is likely because of the American financial situation, the stock market, and everything else. We talked about, go back and watch that video. We talked about how all of this is on hold until a new prime minister is elected so that USMCA can be renegotiated. And that will end the tariffs. So essentially the tariff war is done. Mark Carney has to find a new villain. He can't keep hammering Donald Trump. What's funny about it, I'm not going to bear you down to this video because his ums and ahs are terrible. But let's start out where things went wrong. Watch as Mark Carney gets heckled. Now this again was right at his, as his rally, if you can even call it that in comparison to what Pierre Poilievre has. This is where he gets heckled over island visits. People are asking here if he's a PDF file. Some computers have a lot of PDF files. If you've ever used Adobe, we all know about PDF files. There's a lot of islands south of the border that housed multiple PDF files. But let's take a look at here. What Mark Carney had to put up with last night. Let's take a look.
President Trump's trade war has literally ruptured the global economy. And I'm afraid our... Let's get it right.
Now, keep in mind that Rebel News has reported on this. They've had a truck outside of Mark Carney's rallies asking, what about his relationship with certain people he's been photographed with, where Mark Carney said, well, those people, it's the same as him talking about other individuals of question. Well, I can't help who comes into the room. I can't help who's there talking amongst themselves. First he said, I'm an outsider. Then he said he's a politician. Now he's saying Look, a lot of people want to be around me. This happened on his property. His sister-in-law is directly connected via documents. Again, shout out to David at Moose on the Loose. We talked about that in another video as he uncovered the list. And this guy tries to pretend, I don't know them. I have nothing to do with them. He deserves to get heckled for this.
Look. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I can do it. I gonna do it. We're gonna do it.
No, you can't.
We can do it. That's the question for the next 2.5 weeks. We need to do it because. Come on.
So the boomers, and forgive me for any of our boomer generation audience, the sheeple boomer audience continues to chant for Mark Carney because, well, quite frankly, they're stupid. They don't know what they're. They've either been paid to be there or they're stupid. It's one of the two. What's funny is that just to put context on it, heckled twice in a matter of about a minute. Somebody posted, here's his response. Let's give fair game. Let's hear his response because he says that it's conspiracy theory, even though certain individuals that I'm not going to name because of censorship were on his property and photographed talking with him and his wife that are directly linked to his sister-in-law.
It's interesting. Earlier today, I'll get back to Trump and trade and everything, because we can't avoid it. But
we can't avoid it. There's nothing there. It's done, Mark. It's done. It's paused. You can't. I know people are going to say, Fringe, those tariffs are still in place on certain things. That's all for the renegotiation. There's no more threat of trade war. You can't use Trump as a villain any longer. He's agreed to renegotiate. Oh, we'll get back to Trump and trade. I need to keep all you guys on TDS to make sure, if you don't know what TDS is, Trump derangement syndrome, I got to make sure you guys are all focused on Trump so you vote for me. Give me a break, Mark.
Earlier today, we announced a series of measures on crime. And we announced a series of measures with respect to online harm and other factors. And one of the observations we had, one of the issues we're dealing with, there's many serious issues that we're dealing with respect to crimes of violence, conjugal violence, drugs, fentanyl, others. But one of them is with respect to really just the sea of misogyny, anti-Semitism, hatred, conspiracy theories, this sort of pollution that's online that washes over our virtual borders from the United States.
So right there is what should make everybody shit their pants. This is what we've been warning everybody. It's the same reason I tell you to subscribe. Mark Carney pivots the trolling and states that, hey guys, we've noticed a lot of troublesome things online. And it's not just discussions about what's happening for me or what's happening anywhere else. It's harmful. We need to censor that. That's what he's talking about here. If you think Bill C-63 was bad, what Mark Carney's talking about here is essentially the same thing that's happening in other countries that I can't even mention because the idea of even mentioning them gets you thrown off of the platform. We've seen it happen to Celtic Canuck. She covered one video, all of her side channels, her channel itself, deleted, removed. So I can't even mention those countries that are heavy in censorship. Mark Carney's wanting to turn Canada into that. They've already said, because of Donald Trump and Elon Musk, they want to make X illegal in Canada. They want to censor it out completely. But content creators on YouTube, like myself, like the pleb, like Moose on the Loose, like Clinton Jaws, we're all going to be gone. We're all going to be completely wiped off the face of the earth because you need to get your news from the government's extended mouthpiece, the liberal paid prostitute media. This is why Mark Carney's dangerous for Canada. But it's not just Mark Carney that's dangerous for Canada. It's funny in all of this. What's funny in all of this is that he got eviscerated so badly by people in Hamilton. Keep in mind, this is a very critical area for votes coming up in the federal election. So hopefully the heckling and the long lines of people paints a picture as to what we can expect in the federal election. We need to keep the pressure on. It says here that Carney now takes his third campaign pause and says Trump's trade war raises the stakes. Again, there's nothing. It's a nothing burger. He's taken his ball and gone home. He can't compete with Pierre. He doesn't like that people are lining up at his rallies not to support him, but to heckle him. Look at what's here in this article. Again, this is from Global News. So mainstream paid shill prostitutes. Prime Minister Mark Carney is pausing his federal election campaign for a third time to tackle Donald Trump's escalating global trade war. Carney is campaigning as Liberal leader but retains caretaker authorities as the current Prime Minister during a federal election, said he will return to Ottawa to convene a meeting of the Cabinet Committee on Canada-U.S. Relations and National Security officials on Friday. Again, that paragraph, very crucial. This is a custodial position. Caretaker. Mark Carney can't pass any laws. He can't make any bills. He can't promise anything. He can't do anything. He's crippled. So why is he going back to Ottawa? Why is he making it sound like it's official government business? It's not. This elitist is going back because he doesn't like the beating that he's taking on the campaign trail. It says this comes after Trump paused his so-called reciprocal tariffs for 90 days on dozens of countries, facing higher rates than his 10% baseline. Now, what's funny about this, and again, I understand people are going to say a lot of those tariffs stayed in place in Canada. I get that aspect of it, but we're less than 3 weeks away from the election and then renegotiation. What Trump did was take himself out of the running to be the villain and the reason behind why people would vote for the next Prime Minister of Canada. Pierre Poilievre even came out and said, you know, isn't it funny? Mark Carney said he had a discussion with Donald Trump, that things were great. It was a very successful, we'll say a successful conversation. Please don't quote me verbatim. But then he says, well, look at everything that's still here. Look at what it's doing to our steel workers. Look at what it's doing to our auto sector. You call that a good conversation? You call that progression? Sorry, my goodness. The listdexia today, folks. Canada was not included on that list of countries to face reciprocal tariffs, but does face 3 other sets of tariffs imposed in the last 6 weeks. 25% general U.S. export tariffs on non-CUSMA compliant goods, 25% tariffs on steel and aluminum exports, and 25% auto sector tariffs. Again, what they're not mentioning here was they said it was still yet to be negotiated on the auto sector tariffs as to what parts were Canadian, what parts were American, how they come to an agreement on what's going out for what. Trump said his pause, announced hours after his global tariff policy took effect midnight Wednesday, will bring the tariff rate down to 10% for all countries facing reciprocal tariffs except for China, which as of Wednesday faces a staggering 125% levy on all goods exported to the U.S. after retaliating further in the ever-evolving trade war. So I'm not going to cover this in depth because what we're talking about here is the mainstream media trying to paint a picture, again, orange man bad. This is all Trump's fault. Trump made Carney go off the campaign trail. He's taken the L. He's losing. He can buy all the polls he wants. He can stand with Mike Myers and chant about elbows up as long as he wants, but it looks like the voting public, for the most part, the majority of the voting public, seem to be waking up. You can't hide from reality. You can censor media. You can buy up all the propaganda you want, But I've said before, and I'll say it again, I think when people go to the polls in this election, there's more than just virtue signaling. There's more than woke DEI policy at stake here. I think what's at stake is people's bank accounts, their affordability, and their wallets. People are going to have to vote based on what they can afford. And quite frankly, I don't think many Canadians, unless you're an elite billionaire like Mark Carney, can afford to continue living in a liberal government raised Canada with corruption at the helm and globalists trying to pummel the country into non existence. At the very least, if Mark Carney were to win this election, it spells trouble for Confederation. And I'm not going to get into that. I'll get into that in another video. But let me know what you guys think, ladies and gentlemen. Are you surprised to see Mark Carney hide again, go back and claim that it's Donald Trump, even though it isn't? Are you surprised to see Mark Carney taking the L on the campaign? What do you think about getting heckled over his island visits? Let me know your thoughts down below in the comments. If it's your first time here, I hope this video again has earned your subscription. Make sure to share this out on social media, folks. Hit that like button, throw a comment in, turn your bell on for all notifications so that you're notified every time new videos drop here on the channel. Make sure to join me live tonight and every Friday night for Friday Night Fringe, our weekly live streaming show, where I'm joined by my beautiful wife, Mrs. Fringe, as we go back and forth talking about everything that happened this week in politics, everything that happened that or is going to happen that we're aware of, as well as back and forth with the greatest YouTube community on this platform. I always look forward to sitting inside of those live streams to hear what you have to say outside of making these videos. I most importantly look forward to hearing what you have to say tonight, starting at 6 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Central, here on the channel. With that said, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to go cure my Lisdexia, and I'm going to hope that you have a great rest of your day and enjoyed this video. I'll catch you on the next one.